Councillor Barker.
Could the Chief Executive provide for us and for the people who are running the committee, doing all the work around Ahuriri, a clear outline of a pathway for them to have input into the planning processes for the estuary, so that their voice is not excluded and they feel that they have clear input in this process as the Regional Council goes to make its plans, having regard to the committee around Ahuriri, and also will be obviously hearing the voices they have. So I think if we can have clarity about that, it may go some way to assuage the concerns that people have.
Very good. Any other questions? I have one around the recommendations, which is 15. Excuse me. Just a question in regard to recommendation 2 for the Chief Executive. Approves the draft clauses for the establishment and operation of the Te Committee Murawai o Te Whanga and advises the Office of Treaty Settlements of this approval. How much wriggle room is there once we do that?
There's still quite a bit of finalisation to be done. What they want to be able to have some surety around is that approval in principle, so that they can start setting up the outline of this whole process through both the deed and in legislation. But I've already noted in my own comments around the recommendation that you just read out, subject to further negotiation on matters identified by council. So, that to me would be a bottom line requirement. I would, in the first instance, outline what those concerns are and then wait to hear back from them about them.
So you're suggesting that should be in addition to the...
Either in that one or in number 3. I mean, I just made that my note myself, so that, the Office of Treaty Settlements is made aware that it's not just a carte blanche approval for this.
Would give it more teeth, wouldn't it?
I had actually noted that to move those, but with to change to read approves the draft clauses subject to the matters for negotiation identified by council.
Yep.
Are you happy to move that as number 2?
I'm happy to move the whole lot with that.
But that would be in addition to number 2.
I would just adding that wording into number 2.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be happy to second.
You happy to second that? You wish to speak to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and it's been a very interesting. It's not debate because we've only been in questions, but the information that has arisen from around this. I really do welcome this. I think that, and I do recognise that the importance of this to mana Ahuriri. It is a very significant estuary and has been for hundreds of years to some people. We, Pākehā, have done an awful lot to destroy it. And, you look at the amount of stormwater that goes into it and the colours sometimes that the estuary turns into. It has in the past been a really important food source for Māori, and now it still is, but there are warning signs all the way around it saying do not collect shell food from here, which they still do, and presumably don't get too sick on it. But certainly it's as far as wildlife goes, as far as the bird life, it's a very significant area, right bang on the doorstep of a major urban area. I guess the concerns that were expressed to me was no desire to hang on to the steering wheel. I think that they certainly recognise these groups that who actually should have the steering wheel here. It was just that they didn't want to be left behind on the bus stop, that they'd like to be a passenger in the process and continue to contribute. So it's a desire to recognise that within the thing, that their contribution can be channelled in such a way that they can still have positive input into an area that they also love. So I really look forward to something coming out, but I do retain the concern that the Crown is actually not doing their treaty settlements with fully providing for what they're setting up, and that more and more, and it's been found certainly in the Waikato area, that the cost comes back without any ability to do anything else about it onto the ratepayers. And sometime we're going to have to front up to our ratepayers and say your rates are going up by X amount. And, you know, no ratepayer likes that. So I put that criticism home firmly to the government.
Thank you. Seconder, you wish to speak?
Very little to add to the comments made by Councillor Scott, except perhaps to express my concern, I guess, about the process we're going through here, which is really reshaping the relationship that we have with iwi, and we've said in other forums that, you know, we're in almost a suck it and see period, I guess, a shakedown period, and it will continue to evolve, and I just hope it works and doesn't create a whole lot of extra burdens on this council.
Thank you. Other speakers? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, I don't have any objection at all to the aspirations that this would codify. The suggestions that have been made about the process that would better inform us as to what's in the pipeline with these kinds of agreements and negotiations on some sort of rolling basis, I would find that reassuring. I would remind us that even the terms of reference for the Regional Planning Committee was accepted by this council only by you casting a casting vote because a councillor was absent when we had that debate, and we were otherwise divided 4-4 on a rather fundamental matter of whether the terms of reference for the Regional Planning Committee was even to our satisfaction. So clearly there are concerns amongst the group as to how this whole process is unfolding, and this sort of piecemealing of it is what is bothersome to me, and how all the parts ultimately fit together. I guess, again, I would say I'd feel better about it if we had some clearer notion of what's coming down the pipeline, what conditions, what kinds of agreements are being negotiated in each of these individual settlements, what are the overall obligations that's going to put on the council when you add them all up together, and are they all being somehow ultimately rationally sorted when it comes time to deciding what we're going to spend money on, or how we're going to enforce any of these conditions, or how we're going to get on with the job of meeting whatever obligations were being given by the Crown. And then we're just sort of basically asked to, you know, I'm not even sure why the agenda item is here. I mean, if the bottom line is we have nothing to say about this, as Councillor Graham says, you know, why did we take the last half hour to discuss it?
Councillor Graham.
We took the last half hour to discuss it, Councillor, because it's really important. And it is a treaty settlement, so we're locked into it. But I guess the thing that is contestable would be the representatives. I'm quite happy with the representatives as I see it there, long as the dock is one. So it's 4 tenant te whenua and 4 elected or statutory bodies. I support this because I actually think they'll do a good job. I know it's not an overarching thing that some of us thought was going to occur, but neither are the settlements in Kahanunu overarching. We have to deal with what we've got, and we have a whole lot of different settlements, and we have to deal with them one by one, just as the Crown's dealing with them one by one, because it's very complicated here in terms of who's who. And so it was the only way they could do it, in marriedom I'm talking about. And I actually think this is a good compromise. and I think they'll do an excellent job, a much better job than we've done up to date.
Other speakers? Councillor Barker. I support this wholeheartedly. And I think we lose sight of 2 points here. Firstly, the land that's under Ahuriri was underwater. When it came up, the council, not the council, the Crown, took it for itself and made it part of the Harbour Board. Just took it by statute, and then when it changed the Harbour Boards Act, handed it on to the Regional Council. Māori, all through that time, have felt excluded directly by the Crown's actions from a very important food source that they'd had for hundreds of years. And they felt that they've been on the sidelines ever since as well. So in settling this historic grievance between Māori and the Crown has acknowledged, and I think rightly, that there should be Māori input into it by way of a statutory committee. I think the second point about this is that the concerns that the existing groups around Ahuriri have, I understand they have an understandable apprehension that this new statutory body will exclude them and exclude their voice. I don't think that's the case. The second point I'd make on that is that it's not this committee's responsibility that's being proposed here to hear those voices, it's the responsibility of this regional council. So for them to have their input, it's for the regional council to hear those people and to take those concerns when it's making its plans. Let's not mistake it. This committee does not have absolute control over the plans for Ahuriri. It makes recommendations, which we have to take into account. The responsibility rests entirely with the regional council. It is the final decision maker. And so it's for the regional council to take responsibility for ensuring that the existing community groups feel engaged with and the voices are heard and the matters are taken into account. With regard to the impost of costs on this, I have two views about that. Firstly, there is nothing obligatory in this at all. There's no requirement which will force this council to spend money on things it does not want to. It's entirely discretionary. So we will choose to spend money on research, we will choose to spend money on science if that's what we decide. And if we decide that, then that's probably something we should fund. I personally think we should be funding a considerable amount of science in this area and a considerable amount of work, because the estuary is something that everybody who drives into this region from the north sees. It is a fabulous asset, and is one which I think we can all say hasn't been taken, had the care taken of it as it should. And so I really hope that this setting up this committee will add impetus to treating the estuary as it should do. Councillor Scott makes notes that the estuary changes colour, all sorts of things happen for it. This should not happen in this day and age, and I think it should be a priority for this council to clean up the estuary in every way, shape or form we can. I think we should quadruple, quintuple, whatever it is, our efforts and make sure it is there. This estuary is of great value to the region. So I think that I support this recommendation fully, wholeheartedly, and I think it's going to be a good day for Hawke's Bay.
About 6 months ago, Mana Ahuriri invited the interest groups together for a 2-day wānanga type thing out there. Everybody really enjoyed themselves and everybody felt that they were part of the ongoing plan.
Further speakers wish to sum up? Councillor Scott.
Mr. Chairman, and I think it's the debate has shown that there is a lot of support for this and Council's commitment to it. We are part of the process. We are agreeing to a formal process in this, and I think that certainly the Council's position on agreeing to it should be conveyed to the other committee members and their support for the aspirations to see the estuary return to a really wonderful state. It can't be pristine because we've changed it ourselves by living around it, but it can certainly be of a really high quality natural environment, and we look forward to that. This is going to be, the plan that comes out of this is going to be have a high statutory status. It'll be a Part 6 matter. And I think perhaps Councillor Barker doesn't realise that it's not just weighing one view against another. This is a Part 6 matter when you have to have regard to. And the place for any voices to be heard are being able to contribute to the plan. And I have absolutely no doubt at all that this committee is aware of the groups that have contributed, and we'll listen to them. I think it's just the reassurance those groups looked that they don't suddenly vanish into nothingness, but can be part of the process in a way that they can contribute, not to guide it. So I have confidence that certainly mana Ahuriri will act that way. It's just a case of seeing that at the end of the day, this committee is going to be around a lot longer than the people who are negotiating it. It's going to be a lot longer than anyone's on this council. And it's just a case of seeing that we have something that endures for the future, involving people in a very positive way.
Thank you. Well, I'll put the motion in. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Okay, Napier Port amended constitution. Now, if you think back to the last time this was at the table,